Live streaming in-person events is an incredible way to get more people interested and involved in the event that you have going on. Plus, it's a proven way to actually increase the number of people who attend future events that you have. And on this episode of Live and Local, we're going to dive in and kind of show you the behind the scenes of a production we just wrapped up here this morning and kind of take you along for the ride. So if you've ever wondered what does it take to put on, to actually live stream an in-person event, we'll walk you through in this episode. Hello and welcome to Live and Local. My name is Nick Palkowski and I'm your host here for this show. I'm normally joined by Brian, but he's not here today. But in this episode of Live and Local, what we're going to do is actually walk you through everything that you need to know about how to run a live stream for an in-person event. Live and Local is a weekly show that we do to help local businesses reach more people and get more customers through live video. And personally, one of the most powerful things that live video can do is bring people into a room where an in-person event is happening, and it's just something that they might not be able to do otherwise. So I love being able to actually live stream presentations, live stream conferences, live stream expos, and so we're going to actually take you along for the ride on this actual episode. And so Live and Local, today, Live Action Production, which is the business that is part of Live and Local. We're the ones who Live and Local is our show. Live Action Production is the company that runs everything and that does the live streaming as a service for other people. And we were out at Social Media Breakfast. We live stream their event every single month. And basically, Social Media Breakfast Madison is an event where they usually have a presentation, has one speaker, or in today's case, multiple speakers who are in the front of the stage. It's a little spot where people can network and then listen to a presentation on social media and how it impacts their businesses and how these social media managers or just social media enthusiasts can get more results through the various aspects of social media. Well, today's stream, we actually had 10 different speakers that were up there giving a short slideshow presentation and answering questions, things like that. And we streamed the entire thing. So I want to walk you through a little bit of the process of what this actually looks like. So that's kind of a quick little overview, kind of setting the stage of what we were doing today at Social Media Breakfast. And I am also going to, I want to provide you with a checklist that we think about every single time we do an in-person live event. So you can just type the word checklist in the comments or head over to liveactionproduction.com/checklist. If you're anywhere other than Facebook, you can go do that. And let's go through, and I want to walk you through the various steps that we do when considering running a live stream. So the very first thing you're going to want to do in your checklist is actually go and do a walkthrough. And so a walkthrough is basically some time where you can just go through and kind of get a lay of the land. This is ideal if you can actually be there in person doing that. And here I'm going to play a little bit of B-roll because I tried to grab some actual in-person footage right when I was doing that. And for me, I like to try and do the walkthrough about at least a week ahead of time if possible. And so that's what I was able to do here in this case. Hey, we're about 1 week out from the Social Media Breakfast, and it is time to do the walkthrough here. And really with the walkthrough, going to just kind of check out the space. Also going to make sure, one key thing is to make sure that the internet speed is excellent. Second piece is to check on audio, and then third, if we get time, I'm gonna kind of look around for some camera placement options. But that's definitely a third priority. It's always nice when we get to do a walkthrough, especially in a brand new space. That's always ideal, but otherwise, at least those first two pieces of information need to know ahead of time from the client, no matter what. So walkthroughs, big plus. Happy that we're getting to do one here. And so, as you can see, that was kind of setting up the stage of the walkthrough. And then let's jump on over to when I actually had the chance to go and do the walkthrough here at the Madison Mallard. So we were at a brand new facility that I wasn't used to, that I've never been to before, and they have never done live streaming. So there was definitely a few things that came up in this walkthrough, but really the main things you're looking for is internet, audio, camera placement, and when you're doing camera placement, you want to think about lighting especially, and then of course power for the various cameras as well is going to be important. But here's what I had to say after the walkthrough happened.
All right, done with the walkthrough now. That was 30-40 minutes. Really glad I did the walkthrough, because there are definitely going to be a few challenges. Hopefully we can get things worked out. Internet's a little slow, but they might, hopefully, knock on wood, have fiber by the time the actual event happens. That would be amazing. Luckily, we do have a way to kind of boost the cell phone signal, to boost the signal using cell phone plans, so that helps. Then we should have a solid stream using that, but it's good to know, because there's a few things I can do to kind of prepare for any situations when internet might just kind of crap out on us. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But yeah, and then the other big issue is just going to be audio. The system they use, it just makes that extra challenging. It's a good system for what they're doing. It's a nice setup, should be great sound. Working on a couple solutions there too. So we'll see. They're going to check on their sound guy on their end. So hopefully he's able to make this work in the way I want it to, or the way she kind of mentioned it. That would be the easiest and best. But otherwise, I have backup ideas of just simply double miking people at the very least, or I don't know. We'll figure something out. But yeah, it's always good to kind of know what you're getting into. So now I can go prep everything and get ready to make this stream happen.
All right, so after the walkthrough happens, then the next step is going to be actually going through and doing the event prep. This is where you're going to spend a lot of time here at the event prep, and really what you're going to be doing in the event prep is you're going to be sitting down and creating some of the graphics. You're going to be creating and just kind of setting up the live stream software so that you have all of the buttons correct, make sure that the actions are happening when you want them to happen, and really setting up the stream, possibly scheduling the stream. That's all, in my opinion, that is all considered event prep. You're also going to want to go through and make sure that you have all of the cables and everything that you need ready to go, that maybe you even go through and start packing some of the stuff. I think that all kind of considers as part of that event prep step. But right after that event prep, actually, let's dive into another quick video talking about this kind of event prep step.
Hey, all right, it is the Sunday before a Wednesday social media breakfast, and now in the process, it is time to do some pre-mortem. You've probably heard of post-mortem before, or I think the military calls it the after-action review, where basically you're kind of looking at everything that went wrong and how you can change it. Well, I like to try, especially since it's a live video, I want to try and do a pre-mortem before the event actually starts, really thinking through everything that could possibly go wrong and ways to make adjustments for that. Now, especially with this location, it's a brand new location. You've heard a little bit about it through the walkthrough, but there's some extra little challenges there and some answers that I still don't quite have. Hopefully we'll have early next week. But I need to kind of plan that, like, hey, none of this stuff is going to work. So we have some potential audio issues. We have some potential internet issues. So let's think about, so really what I want people to do, what we do with our pre-mortem is to go through, okay, what if the Wi-Fi in the building is not strong enough to stream? What do we do then? What's kind of the next case scenario? What if our cell phone signal or our normal backup plan, what if that doesn't work? Then what does that leave us? What are each of the little steps to do to kind of get to that rock bottom place? So it's really thinking through some of these, and luckily a lot of these repeat or have similar situations for each event, so that does help a little bit with this planning process, this pre-mortem process. But sometimes each event has unique little things. So for the one, we have for the duck blind one here, they have windows all along the one wall and then around the one sides. So if for whatever reason they're supposed to be able to cover the ones where the projector might be, but what if they can't and then everybody's backlit? What do we do then? How do we handle that? So thinking about those little things. So kind of the general way I go about this is thinking about, okay, what happens if internet has issues? That's kind of the first one. That's usually the kind of key thing. What are the different steps there? How can we slowly downgrade things to maybe not be as cool of a production or as high quality of a production, but still get that stream out there, and then of course still record the higher quality version and to have that later. But what are the step process for that? So internet. Audio is always the next one for me, is thinking about, okay, what is the big audio issues? And there could be some big ones with this one. So it's thinking about what are the different options that we can use to make sure we still get this out to the audience so they can still have a reasonably nice experience. And what are the different levels there? That's really what you got to think about. So internet, audio, then it goes to lighting / camera. That's they kind of come together because lighting is a big part of the actual video piece. So that's where like the backlit issue comes in or anything like that. Also need to be thinking about power. How do you handle power situations? Can you plug into things? What if something doesn't work? What if the fuse blows? Like, what are your different options there? So it's really about thinking what are all the different scenarios that can go wrong, and then how do we solve this? It's hugely beneficial. Takes up a lot of time. That's why it's a Sunday. And I have my little candle burning in the back, and I'm just kind of sitting here in the room. As soon as we're done here, I'll start playing some music and just kind of focus on that pre-mortem and going through the list of things that could possibly go wrong. So hopefully we can prevent them from going wrong.
All right, so there you got to hear a little bit about the pre-mortem, and that one's really, like I mentioned, is just thinking through every possible thing that can go wrong so that you're most prepared for the stream as possible. And really, this is where these 3 steps is what takes a lot of my time, focus, and energy. It's just all of the stuff that happens ahead of time. The walkthrough, the event prep, and that's creating graphics, that's setting the stream up. And then the pre-mortem, really thinking through what are the possibilities that can make this not be successful, because you want to be able to make sure that you can nail as much of that as possible, and so that you're not surprised or have backup plans upon backup plans just in case something does go wrong. It is live video, so yes, things are going to go wrong occasionally, and you just need to be prepared for that. But if you can eliminate a lot of those issues, that's just going to make you feel so much more comfortable, and that's just going to lead to a better overall experience. So again, if you want to grab our checklist, we still have a few more items to go on that checklist, but just type checklist in the comments or head on over to liveactionproduction.com/checklist. So now once we've gone through the pre-mortem, it comes to the actual day of the event. It comes to the time to go through and to set up your live streaming environment for that in-person event. And I usually like to, for today, I arrived about an hour. It actually ended up being a little bit closer to an hour, 15 minutes ahead of time before the stream was actually scheduled to start, which ended up being perfect timing because of a few different issues. But that's when I'm gonna actually arrive there at the facility and just kind of, it's arriving, it's finding the location you're going to be, realizing where you need to be headed, and then it is going through and grabbing all the stuff. You have tons of gear. I like to try and fit all of my gear in as little bit of an environment as possible, so I have a nice suitcase where most gear fits in there. Depending on the environment, I will sometimes occasionally take an extra little computer bag with some backup items there, just in case things do go wrong. That's kind of the emergency thing. If I'm walking into something that's a little more unknown, like today's actually was I did the walkthrough, did a few things, but there was a few adjustments that the facility was making that I just needed, because there was a few adjustments that they needed to make before we actually were there to stream. There was a few potential issues. I wanted to be sure I had a few things just in case. That's kind of the backup plans, if you will. So that is really kind of that next step, is to go through and get all your gear in. And then you are going to go through and actually start setting up. You're going to get a lay of kind of the room. And you're going to go through and you are going to find your streaming station. For me, is that little table in the corner at the beginning, and then just take a lay of the land. Notice where any backlit potential is, because you're going to want to change your camera placements potentially. And you notice here, really great light coming in, lots of really cool. I love the facility, but it did, because of the windows and the way things were set up, it did potentially present a few challenges. But luckily, the audio was coming into the side away from the windows, which allowed me, and it just ended up being a really nice setup, where I could keep all of the cameras on that one side, and have the PTZ optics camera there, so it allows me to get up close and personal, and then kind of follow any of the speakers along. And I want to show you just a little bit of an example of, so this is just one of the cameras that I had there, kind of set up, and it just kind of shows you that was close to the streaming station, so it is easily accessible. We just have a short cord for that one. And then I also had the PTZ optics camera. I love that camera. That's actually this camera right here that I'm talking to right now. And that is able to do all kinds of, have different presets based off of different buttons. So like it can be here, or I can go here and it zooms out. And then for me, that is the perfect to go here to this shot. So I was thinking through a lot of that. A lot of that was already thought through in kind of that event prep stage. But then it's going, as soon as I get to the spot, get to the facility, it's looking at the facility, figuring out, okay, I can do this with this. This is the way where the cameras need to be. And then it is setting up the audio, and then of course testing. Testing is a huge deal. You need to try and test as early and as often, possibly multiple times if you can. And because we had some internet issues potentially, or a little bit uncertainty, we ended up not having any issues, which was awesome. But we had some uncertainty there of what the internet was going to be like. I had a little box live view unit that would allow us to bring in a cell phone signal, but that ended up holding up amazingly and working really well. But I wanted to be sure I had time to test it. I tested it several times to make sure things were working. So you just want to make sure you have enough time in your setup. Get there, get the gear set as quick as possible, so that way you can spend some time making those tweaks, and then setting everything else up. So I like to make sure to set up our comment system. We use something called, we use vMix, so that allows us to bring vMix Social. So I actually had somebody else running the comments that we would put across screen. So we would put comments across screen like so. So then this is an example of what the actual audience, the live streaming audience, was seeing. We could put those comments across screen really easily thanks to vMix Social. But again, you can only do that if you have time to set it up ahead of time and do some tests to make sure it's working. So that is kind of the one really big thing that you want to be thinking about. Okay, is what do I all need to set up? What do I all need to get going? And then do I test? What can I test? All of that fun stuff. And then the next step that I have for you is you want to go through, once you have that setup all ready to go, you want to actually go through and then do that final check. Go through, test it again, make sure it's working. If you have a scheduled post, or you can, if you're going directly to Facebook or to YouTube, you can especially with a scheduled post, you can start streaming to that post ahead of time. And then you can listen to it, make sure it's working, make sure it's sounding good. And one thing I like to do is, let's quickly show you, I like to always have basically a countdown timer and a coming soon, the show is about to start kind of thing. And so I give myself 5 minutes. Really, that 5 minute is kind of that final, hey, let's get this tested. Let's make sure everything is working perfectly. Let's go listen to the sound as it's going out to Facebook, because occasionally you'll have an issue there where it might be coming perfectly from the computer, but for whatever reason, there's a mess up on the Facebook side. So you just want to try and eliminate all of those before you get started. And so that's one way to do that, is to have that kind of final test. And then the next thing you're going to want to be thinking about is you're going to want to go through and once you have that final check, you're going to go through and you are going to start running the show. And that's really the next big thing. And so that's going to be going through and actually streaming the show, like, having all the cameras ready, everything up there, all the switching boards all ready to go. You're going to start the show. You're going to check to make sure it's live. You're going to be there switching, and that's the little keyboard, the little X keys that I love to use because it makes for an amazing, seamless, very easy to use switching experience. I have all kinds of shortcuts set up with that. Like I mentioned, we're bringing in comments. All of those fun things are happening thanks to that ability to actually go through, and that all that is happening while you're running the actual show. And then after the show is done, I always like to, especially with these live events, what I like to do is I have a button that will mute the audio, so we mute the audio, and then I have a song ready and another button on the X key that I just hit plays the song. So this is all kind of part of that wrapping up the show. So it's playing the song, and I let it just kind of play the song for a little while. I will take the PTZ Optics camera and do kind of a wide room grab and just like let people see the entire room, and then I'll fade it back and forth between the two cameras for a little bit. And I do that for maybe about 30 seconds or so, and then I finally fade to black and cut the stream. So I fade to black, and I actually sit and wait until I see the black on my phone, that the stream is fully black, and then at that time I will end the stream because we're using the live view. So there's a decent delay. There's probably about a 30-second delay. So what I don't want to do is I don't want to potentially cut off the end of the stream or anything like that. And I want to also give people time to say, hey, thanks for tuning in, or thanks for streaming, all that fun stuff. So I want to give people a few more minutes just to kind of comment or anything like that, any final comments they have before we just abruptly end the stream, because at that point most people will usually jump off as soon as the stream ends. So that's why I like to do that. And really then once you have gone through and kind of wrapped everything up, that's when you go and just kind of connect with people then for a little bit. Say hi to people, make that connections. Usually some people who come talk to you, say, hey, thanks for doing this. That's awesome. All that fun stuff. But then begins my least favorite part, the teardown. Not there's anything crazy difficult about the teardown. It's just time consuming. So you're going through and you're tearing down all the things, and then you're packing everything up, and then you load up the vehicle, and then you get to be on your way and heading back home, which is always fun and exciting, and hopefully you just had an amazing, successful live stream experience. But the one thing is that is not necessarily where your work for that in-person event ends. This, I think, is very, very key. I want to make sure that you realize this. It doesn't end right there with the live event. There's actually some follow-up that needs to happen. So it's really about going through and doing that post-mortem. We did a pre-mortem before we started the stream, but then before we started the actual event, but realize, hey, I should go through and actually think about, okay, what went well, what did not go well, what were some of the challenges. So go through, and an example of what I like to review is what worked. So really think about what was it that I did that worked very well, that I want to repeat again if possible. So think about those types of things. Then you also want to think about what didn't work, what just simply didn't go as planned. Maybe you had to jump to a backup plan for some element, or maybe you had extra stress because they couldn't find a cable, or the facility didn't have the cable that you thought they had. So what can you do to make things go smoother? Today, for example, one of them that we had, and this is something that the reason you're thinking about this is because you want to think about strategies to improve your streams. How can we go about making this smoother, making this easier, making this better for the client? What needs to happen to really make that possible, to make that a better experience overall for everyone involved? So one example today is we had someone who didn't use the mic, which made it difficult for the live streaming audience to hear it. I was able to, turn the volume up a little bit, and most people were able to hear it, or hear it well enough. But one way to potentially alleviate that in the future is to make sure to send the speaker like a reminder. Send them, and this would be a great email to really send to speakers to make sure that you're getting the slides on time, to make sure that they know that it's live streamed, and to make sure they know how they can share the live stream with their audience. Maybe they want to send an email or something like that to their audience, that would be a great way to promote the stream. And that's something we haven't been doing. So that's something I need to add to our checklist, or to our full-on checklist of things that need to be happening every single time we do an in-person live event. So that's an example. For me, I want to do also more audience shots. So maybe that's setting up, taking the time, getting things set, and then creating, quick keys on the PTZ Optics camera early on, so that we can do some quick audience shots, so we get reaction shots, things like that. That would be awesome. Or maybe it's grabbing some B-roll before, as people are kind of entering, and then getting it onto the computer, so that you can play that during certain elements, or during some of the maybe when they're talking about the facility, when the facility, so for Social Media Breakfast, every single time they always bring up whoever is hosting the event, the facility. Somebody from there comes up, talks about what they offer, talks about what they do, talks about how people can go and use their facility or rent it out, things like that. Like this time we were at the Madison Mallards Duck Blind, which is an amazing event space. Really enjoyed working with them. I do want to say a huge thank you to Macy, to Jeff, who had to run in from Middleton to help us with some audio issues at kind of the last minute there, and then Tyler for doing a great job at really, they're not used to having a live streaming event come in by any means. So they did a great job of being very accommodating, very helpful, and really making sure we had an amazing experience, because things did go really smoothly. There was just a few potential issues, but they helped make sure that problem got solved, so I could focus on everything else that we were doing, which was awesome, and which is exactly what I love in a facility. But you don't always know that it's going to be that way. So how can you go through, and what can we do to make sure it's smoother on our end? How can we take more things in our control to smooth out any of those problems? I want to potentially create, this is just another strategy piece that I was thinking about. Even I haven't sat down and done the postmortem yet. That's going to happen here as soon as we get off this live, because I just got things set back up for today's stream. But another thing I want to do is I want to potentially do more, something better with the pre-show, that countdown timer. Can we change those shots, like maybe create a playlist in vMix, and have it just kind of change back and forth between cameras? Easy to do, something that can definitely happen. I just have to realize that I want to do that and set that up in kind of that event planning side of this. So a lot of the things you're going to strategize about are going to be stuff that you can start implementing on way earlier on in that event planning kind of side of things. So that is really everything that I have for you today about the event checklist. So that it's kind of hopefully gives you a quick little behind the scenes. I want to continue to try to do more of these, because I think that's honestly how you're going to learn the most, is getting a chance to see what the actual running of an in-person event looks like. So we have Social Media Breakfast every month. We have CultureCon happening here again soon. That's June 6th. I'm going to try and do some behind-the-scenes stuff for that. I want to try and grab some actual recordings so you can get a real-time feel of what it's like to see that behind-the-scenes event. We actually only were able to do a few here, but I want to do more in the future. So if you want this full checklist walking you through everything that we take into account when considering an in-person live event, simply type the word checklist in the comments on Facebook, or head on over to liveactionproduction.com/checklist. You'll find everything listed there. And I just want to thank you again for tuning in to Live and Local. We are live every single Wednesday at 3 p.m. Central Time. And all you have to do to get show reminders is simply type show in the comments on Facebook, or head on over to liveactionproduction.com. You'll find all the details about the show there. And until next time, it's time for you to go out and start streaming.